back to another struggle day. Yes, how are we all doing? We are live on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and we are streaming live via the cell phone on Instagram. So, for those of you that are watching this live, we do have a call in link up on Facebook. So, for those of you that are on my personal Facebook, we do have a call-in link if you guys do want to call in. There's something new that we're trying. So far this week has been call-in week. You know, we had one of my personal friends, Alexander, on Monday to help us out do the movie review for Doctor Strange. That man is just a wealth of knowledge when it comes to anything Marvel comic book related. This man is like he is a comic book purist and connoisseur. So I definitely had to have him on that episode just to help me because even though I like comic books, I'm not that well versed in comic books myself. Most of my interest in comic books came from like the TV shows and then in the movies. Then I just went and got back briefed on it. But so today, and then we had Fat Jesus. He was on Wednesday on our general episode. And so it was nice to have him on. I missed him being on the show. So of course, if you guys are watching this on Facebook, you guys can tune in. Just click that link in the description box, and you guys can call in. Now we are able to screen comments via our platform StreamYard, even though unfortunately the comments do kind of come in relatively slow. I think there's just a delay because it is a web browser and all types of other stuff. I mean, it's a browser software in the browser, yada yada yada. All that. My brain is fried. It's been a long day, so yeah. So we're gonna go ahead. We're gonna get into this. So today's chapter for our struggle episode is going to be chapter 28 of Exodus. And 28 is definitely something special. It is called the Kohanim, or the priest garments. So in this episode, we are going to go into this episode is pretty much, or this chapter, sorry, is very descriptive. Like I said, these next few episodes are going to be very descriptive on a lot of things. Of course, we are using Dennis Prager's book, Exodus, God, Slavery, and Freedom, as our extra biblical resource to kind of help us get through and help us understand some of these chapters, some of the text. Dennis Prager is Jewish, of course. Jews really the first 5 books of the Bible is part of the Torah, so that's something that both Jews and Christians have in common. Now, for those of you, if you're new to this or if you're used to this, of course, I don't care what kind of Bible that you use. Trust me, I got plenty of Bibles throughout the house. I go through this every episode, but of course, for those of you that are new, sorry, allergies. So for those of you that are new, I don't care what version that you use. I'm not going to get into the argument of you should only use the King James version and all this other stuff. I'm not getting into that. I'll let those people who want to argue that, I'll let them argue that. If people come on, since we are opening this up to calls, if people want to come on here and say, well, you shouldn't read the NIV, the ESV, the TLV, the whatever version, I don't care. I'm just gonna politely tell them, you know what? On this show, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Read whatever Bible that you have as long as you can read it. That's the only requirement. Right here, I got the Dewey Rames version. That's more Catholic backed. Of course, we do our Bible study off of the TLV version. That's the version that I like. That's the version I can read. However, my most favorite version is the Hallelujah Scriptures. I love this. To me, I love it. It definitely gives a different perspective. So I don't care on what kind of Bible you use. I don't care what kind of Bible you have, as long as you can read it and as long as you enjoy reading it. Trust me. I grew up reading the King James version and the thou and this and thine and I, it made my head hurt. It's very Shakespearean, and it made my head hurt. So, and I didn't like reading. And also, I'm dyslexic, so yeah, yeah, reading was never really a fun thing for me until I started finding things that I like to read. So, definitely, me changing up the translations definitely helped. So, yes, so we're gonna go in and get into this. We're gonna read the scriptures straight through. Then, of course, we're gonna ask Dennis, in his scriptures, in his book, some of his essays and explanations and stuff like that. And if we get any callers, then we will definitely take questions or take comments or whatever else. This is a new thing that we're trying on the show. And I hope, I hope it adds value. So let's get into this thing here. Crap, I left my glasses. All right. Chapter 28, the Kohen slash priest, because in most of the Hebrew heavy versions, they're not gonna say priest because priests are very Greek, and from the explanation that I heard, that they're very paganistic in origin. So we're not going to be the versions that I use. They don't say priest, but I understand them to be known as the closest translation is a priest. Also, shout out to my friend and mentor Alfonso Rachel. If you guys want to go get a nice mug like this, you guys can definitely go visit him on his platform, Brown Serpent Media, and yeah, tell him that I sent you. All right, so let's get into this. Chapter 28. Bring your brother. Now, just for clarification, if you guys this is your first time tuning in, Moses is on Mount Sinai talking to God. So for the last few chapters, it's been nothing but Moses up on Mount Sinai talking to God. Nothing has really happened. God has just given Moses all the instructions for everything that he's going to need. So starts out, bring your brother Aaron here with his sons among Bane Israel or B'nai Israel, so that you may minister to me as Kohanim. Aaron and his sons Nadab and Abihu, Eliezer and Ithamar, you are to make holy garments for your brother Aaron, for splendor and for beauty. You are to speak to all who are skilled, whom I have filled with the spirit of artistry, to make Aaron's garments with sorry, to make Aaron's garments for consecrating him, so that he may minister to me as a Cohen. These are the garments that they are to make: a breastplate, an ephod, a robe, a tunic, a checkered work, a turban, and a sash. Now, ephod, it's like it's kind of like a tunic, but it's like a tunic with no sleeves. It's pretty much like you take a sheet, you cut a hole in the center, and bam, you just throw it over your head, and the material drapes in your front and your back. That's an ephod. So they are to make holy garments for your brother Aaron and his sons, so that he may minister to me as a Cohen. They are to use the gold, blue, purple, scarlet, and fine linen. They are to make the ephod of gold, blue, purple, scarlet, and and finely twisted linen, the work of a skilled craftsman. It is to have two shoulder pieces stitched to the two ends, so that it may be joined together. The skillfully woven band which is upon it, with which it is to be bound. It is to be like the design from the same piece of gold, blue, purple, scarlet, and finely twisted linen. You are to take two onyx stones and engrave on them the name of B'nai Israel. Six of their names are on one stone, and the names of the remaining six are on the other stone, in order of their birth. With the work of a gem cutter, engraving a seal etched with two stones, in the order of the names of B'nai Israel. Make them enclose in settings of gold. Fasten the two stones upon the shoulder pieces of the ephod to be memorial stones for Bnei Israel. So Aaron is to bear their names before Adonai, and he's to shoulder uh, on his two shoulders as a reminder. Fashion filigree, and filigree, for those of you that don't know, if you filigree is like, it's like leaf work. It's designing, it's stitching and pattern. Let me see if I can give you guys. I had to look this up the other night. It's like ornamental work. So, and it's typically gold or silver wire formed into a delicate tracy, delicate silver. Yeah, that's how. Let me go ahead and share this with you guys, because I'm one of those people. If I can't see it, then I don't like. I won't get it. So let me go ahead and share this with you guys. So this is filigree right here. Let's go ahead and go. Yes, I'm using Google Images. So it's pretty much all this stuff right here. All this fine like woven patterns and stuff like that. That's really all it is. It's just woven leafy foliage patterns. And then let me just go ahead and show you guys what an ephod is. Okay, this is the image of the priest right here, if that makes any sense. So this right here would be the ephod, this blue piece. All right. Where are we at? Filigree. Let me go ahead and drop this screen down. Fashion filigree settings of gold, along with two chains of pure gold of braided work. You will attach the chains to the filigree settings. Make a breastplate of judgment and the work of a skilled craftsman. You are to make it like the design of the ephod of gold, blue, purple, scarlet, and finely twisted linen. It is to be a square and double over, a span in the length, and a span in the width. Set within it 4 rows of jewels, a row of ruby, topaz, emerald in the first row, a turquoise, a sapphire, and a diamond in the second row, a Jansen, I have no idea what that is. How do you spell that? Yeah, trust me, I'm very bad with pronouncing out stuff. Let me see. Jacksmith. How do you call it? So it's like a ruby. Jacinth. Okay. So it's like a reddish orange gemstone. So jacinth and an agate and amethyst. That's it. Let's go ahead and, I'm getting tongue tied. My dyslexia's kicking in, which is like a purple ruby. So I don't understand how you say that. Amethyst. Yeah, amethyst. Yeah, I think that's what it is. And they're not even giving me the option to hear it. Okay. Oh, here we go. Amethyst. Yeah. So I told you guys, I'm a tad bit dyslexic. Don't mind me. So amethyst for the third, and beryl and onyx and jasper on the fourth row. They are to be enclosed in gold filigree settings. The stones are to be engraved in the order of the names of Bnei Israel, 12 according to their names, like the etchings of the signet seal. one corresponding to each name of the 12 tribes. Also, you are to make upon the breastplate braided chains and wreath work of pure gold. Oh, I think I'm getting a lot of feedback. So let me just drop that down. I understand why I'm getting all this feedback here. Sorry. Uh, Forge a breastplate of 2 rings of gold and fasten the 2 rings on the 2 ends of the breastplate. See, wait. Moses is a better man than me because remember, he's writing all this stuff. Well, he's either remembering or writing all this stuff down. If God did that to me, I'd be like, you know what? I'm sorry. You really gonna have to break this down Barney style because I can't keep up. I'm a tad bit slow. Cause it like sometimes when I'm reading this, I'm like, I feel like I'm back in school because it's a lot to keep, in there. So the other 2 ends of the chains are to be placed on the other 2 settings and put them on the shoulder pieces of the ephod in front. So you are to make 2 rings of gold and put them on the 2 ends of the breastplate on the edge of it that is toward the inner side of the ephod. Also make 2 gold rings and place them on the shoulder pieces of the ephod underneath in the front, close to where it is joined, above the artful woven band of the ephod. When then they are to bind the breastplate by its rings to the rings of the ephod with the blue thread, with a blue thread, so that it may be on a skillfully woven band of the ephod, and so that the breastplate will not come loose from it. Oh, even God said, "Hey, you're doing this because we're just going to make sure it doesn't come loose." So Aaron will bear the name of Bnei Israel in the breastplate of judgment on his heart whenever he enters the holy place as a continual memorial before Adonai. Also, put the Urim and the Thummim within the breastplate of judgment, so they will be on Aaron's heart when he goes in before Adonai. Aaron will bear the judgment of Bnei Israel on his heart before Adonai continually. You are to make the robe of the ephod entirely of blue. It is to have a hole for the head in the center. Like I said, it's supposed to be like a piece of garment that you throw over your head and it drapes in the front, drapes in the back. Um and a binding of woven work around the hole as a collar so that it may not be torn. Even more descriptive. On the hems of it, you are to make pomegranate of blue, purple, and scarlet all around the hem, with golden bells between them. One golden bell and a pomegranate, then another golden bell and a pomegranate. On the hem of the robe, all around, it must be worn by Aaron whenever he ministers. The sound is to be heard when he goes into the holy place before Adonai, and when he comes out, so that he does not die. And the reason why pomegranate is used, and this is just from my extra studies, just looking into the symbolism of certain things. Pomegranate is supposed to symbolize plenty, because I don't know if you guys ever eaten a pomegranate. I don't understand why I'm getting so much feedback. Sorry. A pomegranate, when you guys slice into it, it has a whole bunch of seeds in it. So, and that's why pomegranate symbolically represents plentiful, because this one fruit has all these seeds in it. Now, me personally, I'll save this to the end once I'm done reading. But I have my own observations of my own beliefs. I could be wrong. I'm not saying I'm right, but I have my own assumptions, and hopefully either I find something that either confirms or denies what I'm thinking, or maybe if God himself tells me, or when I die, I want to know, I'm going to ask God, "Hey, show me everything. Help me understand." So let's continue. Also, do not make a plate of pure gold and engrave on it, like the engravings on the seal, holy to Adonai. Attach it with a violet cord onto the turban. It's like, like those Naruto headbands. So pretty much, Aaron was the first one wearing a Naruto style headband with an engraving on it. So yeah. Attach it with a violet cord onto the turban on the front of the turban, so that it will rest on Aaron's forehead, so that Aaron will bear away the iniquity committed regarding the holy things, which Bnei Israel set apart as all their holy gifts. It is to be always on his forehead, so that they may have favor before Adonai. You are to weave the tunic in checkered work of fine linen. Make a turban of fine linen, and make the sash the work of color weavers. For Aaron's sons, you are to make a tunic, sash, headwear for them, for splendor and for beauty. See, and even guys sitting straight up saying, like, look, this is supposed to look good. You supposed to look snazzy. You don't come into my house looking busted. You're supposed to look good. And then pretty much that's what God is saying, that's what it's for. It's supposed to be for splendor and for beauty. It's just, it kills me when I hear some Christians talking about, or just some people, not even just Christians, but spiritual people talk about, oh, well, you can't have beauty and artwork and all this other stuff. That's the work of the devil. Obviously, y'all don't read your Bible close enough, because God's straight up said, hey, I want these tunics, these sashes, these weaves, I want them to be beautiful. Put them on Aaron your brother, and on his sons with him, and anoint them, consecrate them, and sanctify them, so that they may minister to me as Kohanim. You are to make a linen undergarment for them, cover the skin of their nakedness from the hip to the thigh. They are to be worn by Aaron and his sons when they get into the tent of meeting, or when they approach the altar to minister in the holy place, so that they do not become subject to guilt and die. It is to be a statute forever to him and his offspring after him. So remember, this only applies to Aaron and his descendants and his sons who are in the priestly class. So, and that's it for the chapter. But however, we do have one cliff note right here. It says Exodus 28:21. Let me see. Let me go back. Where does it say that? Exodus 28:21. Is that what it was? Yeah, 28:21. Let's go here where it says, didn't go back far enough. Where's 21? The stones are to be engraved in the order of the names of Bnei Israel, 12 according to their names, like the etchings of a signet seal, one corresponding to each name of the 12 tribes. So it references Revelation 21:12, the New Jerusalem. And even though this is the scripture right here, but I like to give the context before, because sometimes when you just write the context, it just throws people off. Then came one of the seven angels holding the seven bowls full of the seven final plagues, and he spoke with me, saying, come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. Then he carried me away in the Ruach, which is spirit, to a great high mountain, and he showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God, having the glory of God, her radiance like a most precious stone, like a jasper, sparkling like crystal. The three gates of the east, three gates on the north, three gates on the south, and three. She had a great high wall with 12 gates, and above the 12 gates, and above the gate, 12 angels. One of the gates were inscribed the names of the 12 tribes of Bnei Israel, gates on the west. And the wall of the inner of the city had 12 foundations, and on them the 12 names of the 12 emissaries of the Lamb. So if that didn't throw you for a loop, because one thing about Revelation, Revelation will have you like questioning life. Revelation will have you questioning virtually everything if you don't know how to read it. So go ahead and get a sip. So as we see here, so the reason why, one, just going back to what I was talking about with the pomegranate before we get into Dennis Prager's book, I believe, because the some people say that the forbidden fruit was an apple. I don't believe that it was an apple. That's just me personally. I don't believe that. Um, I just don't. I've heard some um I've heard some scholars, mainly from the Jewish side of the Jewish scholars. I've heard them explain that they believe that the fruit of knowledge of good and evil is a fig leaf or a fig plant. The fig was the fruit. And the reason why they justify that was the fig was the only plant that was named in Genesis during that. I mean, it was named in those chapters of Adam and Eve. They didn't really name any other fruit or any other plant that bears fruit outside of the fig leaf. Me personally, I believe that the fruit of knowledge of good and evil to me is the pomegranate. And I could be wrong, and I'm okay with being wrong. I'm not solidified in it, but here's why I say that. Because the pomegranate has to have some sort of significance outside of, to me, outside of plenty, because why else would you put it on the garments? I mean, just saying plenty, I mean, that could have been recognized by the stones on there. I mean, because which allude to Abraham. Again, I'm just brainstorming. This is my mind. This is just my opinion. um I believe that the fruit of the knowledge of good and evil is a pomegranate. One of the explanation that I heard of why it was a fig is because a fig is like a Rabbi Manis Friedman. He said because the fig is a very what did he say? I think he said it was a very a sexual looking plant. It has flesh. Let me see. Let me go ahead and let me do this. Let me find. So, and if you look at the internal, so this is what a fig looks like. Some people say Manus Freeman, his explanation was the fig looks like flesh. It's a very like fleshy looking plant. I mean, to me, the insides, excuse my language, to me it looks like a butthole. That's just me. It looks like a rancid butthole. Um, but that's just I don't think, but it does look fleshy. But another fruit that also looks fleshy is the pomegranate. Let's just go ahead and just look at that. The right here, like the pomegranate right here, and it has kind of like a little crown looking piece right there. And if you've ever eaten a pomegranate, when you bite into like the seeds and stuff, it 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 kind of stains like blood. It's red, like it's blood red. It's a fleshy fruit. Like the fruit feels like leather. I mean, it's definitely very good. And to me, the pomegranate is the only fruit that kind of looks like an apple, at least in our mind. Like it looks like, it's red like an apple, and red is supposed to be very enticing. And then one thing that they said is that like Eve lusted after it. I don't see anybody lusting after this. this purplish, leathery, tiny little fruit thing. However, I can see someone lusting after this red, fleshy, leathery fruit that when you bite into it or you eat the seeds, it looks like blood. I don't know. That's just me. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. To me, it just to me a pomegranate makes sense. You know, and and they talked about seeds. If you really catch, I mean, now the fig, I'm assuming all these little tiny things in here, I believe like these are seeds and stuff like that. I mean, I that could be it, or maybe the tree of life was the fig and the tree of knowledge of good and evil was the pomegranate. Could be both. I mean, I'm just spectating here. I'm just speculating. Just giving you guys my thoughts. I'm verbally because we don't really have anything else to go on. The only plant that is listed is the fig. However, God tells Moses to have skilled workers put pomegranates on Aaron's garments, his holy garments. So maybe, and that's the another reason why that maybe by putting the pomegranate on the garment was to remind them of the original sin of eating from the tree of knowledge of the knowledge of good and evil. Maybe that's just me. I could be wrong. I could be speculating a little too much. Who knows? But that's how I'm looking at it. And again, uh, again, that's just me. So let's go ahead, get into Genesis. Go ahead and shut these off. Ooh, go ahead and just get my workstation all nice and situated, like. All right. So Dennis has a boom. As soon as we get into chapter 28 of his book, which is supposed to be the chapter 28 in the corresponding with chapter 28 in Exodus, he has an essay, the benefit of heredity of a the benefit of a hereditary priesthood. The priesthood is a hereditary institution. Only the descendants of Aaron, all of whom come from the tribe of Levi, are designated as priests. And this remains true to this day. However, this is not how the modern world views the making of leaders. We believe in choosing leaders, hopefully based on their abilities and values, and not in individuals attaining position of authority solely through birth. Despite all the problems with democracy, we would not have leaders chosen any other way. As Sir Winston Churchill pithily noted, quoting an unknown source, uh, an unknown source, democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others. Nevertheless, there are benefits to having a hereditary priesthood. Go ahead and turn my mic up a bit because I think the feedback is done. Uh, First, unlike societal leaders who are given political and military power, priests are are to have no power. Their role is to serve to help the community come close to God. Second, by making the priesthood a hereditary institution, the chances for corruption entering the religious leadership of the nations are reduced. Simply put, no one can buy or force his way into the priesthood. A third benefit is priests do not have to worry about popularity. They never have to run for election or re-election. With regard to hereditary institutions, I don't understand why I'm getting tongue tied. Being non-democratic, while democracy is indispensable to civil society, it is irrelevant and potentially even destructive of religion. When religion becomes democratic, it ceases to be religion. And I highlighted that part because to me that really hit me in a very interesting way because we see all these churches now, especially for those of you that go to a Christian church and stuff like that. where you have like these elders and all this other stuff. The it becomes a popularity contest. And I was watching the Hillsong documentary last night, and they were pretty much putting people into these positions based off of the people who they liked and people who are popular to draw attention. And it's interesting because they were preaching things that they would quote the scripture and then completely, you know, obliterate what the scripture said. So in some aspect, being a priest is your duty is to God. That's really it. You are to be the mediator between the community and God, your nation and God. That's really it. You don't have to be liked, you don't have to be popular. It's you got a role to play. You got a job to do. So, members of a religion can vote for one's clergy. Obvious example include cardinals of Roman Catholic Church choosing the pope and synagogue boards voting on who to employ as rabbi, but they cannot vote on what their religion demands. Members of religion do not get to vote. For example, on whether or not to remove one of the 10 commandments. I swear, because we are seeing that right now in politics with this whole Roe v. Wade thing. You really have politicians out here trying to outrule what the Supreme Court says. So let's just, if we had to use our modern day world, the judge, even though we have judges in the Bible and judges have an appointed, position, let's just say the Supreme Court are like the Levites. They are the appointed priest. Unfortunately, with just let's just take out the hereditary part. The priests are to really just dispatch what God's judgment is, and they're supposed to hold to the laws and they're not supposed to change. That's really what our Supreme Court justices are supposed to do. What does the Constitution say? The Constitution is the Bible of the land, so to speak. It is like the commandments of the land. They don't change. They're not supposed to change. And you got to go through hell and high water just to change something or to add something in. So we have these senators out here upset because they want to overturn Roe v. Wade, and now you have senators and congressmen overstepping and trying to say, "Hey, this is in the Constitution," but you really have the Supreme Court, the majority of the Supreme Court saying, "No, it's not. It's not in there." So, unfortunately, you can dislike it if you want to, but it's not in the Constitution. Therefore, it's not a constitutional law, it's not a constitutional right, and it's none of our business. It's not on the federal level, if that makes sense. So, let me see. Members of the religion do not get to vote, for example, on whether or not to remove one of the 10 commandments. Had the Israelites been able to vote on the 10 commandments, they may have voted against some of them. All what a well-known Jewish joke that relates that when Moses descended with the second set of 10 commandments, he announced, Israelites, I have good news and bad news. The good news is I got him down to 10. The bad news is adultery stays. Yeah, I can kind of see. You know what I noticed? Like, Jews actually have a lot of dirty, clean jokes. They have a lot of jokes that have dark, dirty undertones, but they're very clean on the surface. Because I have a friend and mentor named Rabbi Randy. He tells these hilarious stories that are insanely inappropriate, but they're so clean on the surface. A remarkable Talmudic passage makes this point rather emphatically. The Israelites, the Talmud records, only accepts the 10 commandments when God held Mount Sinai over their heads and threatened to drop it on them if they didn't accept it. Most of the British people and founders of the modern democracy have been comfortable with hereditary monarchy for over 1,000 years. It may ultimately be rejected as more and more British reject the concepts of hereditary a hereditary monarchy, even one that doesn't really rule them. I know that sounded really bad when I read that. I was trying to get over the stumble. But that would be a pity, since the world would be gained, since little would be gained, and a nation uniting institution would be lost. James uh, James Burton Kaufman, author of 37 volumes, verse by verse commentary on the Bible, noted the priesthood introduced a dramatic change into the religious life in Israel. Until now, Kaufman explains only individuals played the role of priest. Moses, as high priest, sprinkled the blood upon the people to signal the formal ratifying of the covenant. Exodus 24, verse 8. And before Moses, Abraham had in effect acted as a priest. See Genesis 15, 7 through 19. But from this point on, the responsibility of carrying out the sacrifices shifts to Aaron, his sons, and their descendants. And then it goes into the role of the priest. The modern Bible scholar Jacob Milgram makes the important point that the welfare of Israel depends on both Moses and Aaron. Moses serves as the prophet, the sublime ethical voice conveying God's words to the people, while Aaron serves as the priest, the ritual leader responsible of helping people connect individually to God. Both are necessary for a meaningful religious life. The priest had four major duties. The priest dedicated himself to living a holy life and helping other Jews come closer to God through Jewish ritual, which at the time consisted primarily of sacrifice. As noted, other rituals performed by the priest included blessing the people with priestly benediction, Numbers chapter 6, verse 22 through 26, redeeming the firstborn son, Numbers 18, verse 15 through 16, blowing the trumpet to convene the people both on joyous festivals and at the time of war, Numbers 10, 1 through 10, that the trumpet were sounded by the priest is made clear in Numbers 31, verse 6. The priest treated physical ailments such as disease and plague, which were thought to be not of psychological psychological phenomena. Yeah, of no, I think I said that wrong. Yeah, whatever. But also sometimes embodiments of spiritual imperfection. See Leviticus chapters 13 through 15. Also, Numbers 12, which depicts Miriam as afflicted with a serious skin disease for speaking ill of her brother Moses. The priest judge disputes, Deuteronomy 21, verse 5. The instruction the instruct and instructed the people and the kings in the laws of the Torah. Deuteronomy 17, verse 18, 31, verse 9 through 13. The high priest, by wearing the object known as the Urim and the Thummim on his breastplate, provided a medium through which God would communicate positive and negative responses to major national questions. See verse 30 in this chapter. Also, and also Numbers 27, uh Numbers chapter 27, verse 21. Jacob Milgram notes the Torah does not make clear how the Urim and the Thummim worked. The insignia of Yale University is the breastplate the high priest wore complete with the words Uman and Thuman in Hebrew. Yale, like nearly all old prestigious American universities, was founded by Christians rooted in the Torah and the rest of the Hebrew Bible, initially for training clergy. Since the priests were regarded as mediators between man and God, as well as between man in the case of disputes, there was always the chance they might become intoxicated by their power and abuse their authority. Indeed, this happened. First Samuel describes how the sons of the priest Eli, himself a righteous man, misappropriated meat for the sacrifice being offered at the Shiloh temple and slept with a woman who worked there. See First Samuel chapter 2, verse 12, and through chapter 4, verse 22. This to prevent these and other abuses and ensure the priest's behavior was in the service of God. The Torah provides extensive detailed laws governing the conduct of the priest. These laws include the following. Priests were not allowed to have any contact with dead bodies. In this important regard, they were fundamentally different from the Egyptian priests who were responsible for ministering to the dead. The Egyptian religion and culture was focused on death. The Torah, on the other hand, wants its adherents to be preoccupied with sanctifying this life. Thus, an absolute barrier was erected between the Israelite priesthood and death. Priests had to wash their hands and feet prior to entering the temple or approaching the altar. They also had to be dressed in a manner that radiated sanctity. A priest could not marry a woman who had been a prostitute or was divorced. Leviticus 21, verse 7. Regarding the first instance, priests were expected to serve as models of holiness, and fairly or unfairly, it is if it became known the priest's wife was a former prostitute, it would hinder his efforts to be regarded as a holy man. Whew. As regarded as regards the ban on a priest marrying a divorced woman, this had nothing to do with her worth as a human being. The issue was, again, the priest structure being compromised. If there were another man, one, moreover, undoubtedly known to the community, who had sexual relations with the priest's wife. Analogously, throughout most of modern history, it was expected the King of England would marry a woman who was a virgin. As recently as 1938, King Edward III had abdicated the throne of England in order to marry the twice divorced Wallis Simpson. One sus- One suspects that what disturbed the English was that there would have been two men, both living, who could claim they slept with the woman who is now queen. Of course, all other Israelite men could marry a divorced woman. The Torah attached no stigma to a divorced woman, or for that matter, to divorce. The biblical restrictions regarding priests are still observed by Orthodox and some non Orthodox Jews. In addition to the prohibitions on marrying a divorced woman, a Jew who knows himself to be a priest, a Kohen, is not allowed to attend a funeral or go to the burial except in the case of an immediate relative. The second Jewish temple was destroyed in the year 70. The priests, for obvious reasons, lost their formal religious role. The Jewish priesthood became largely symbolic. However, within the Hasidic movement, which arose in the 18th century, the Rebbe or Rabbi, the leader of the Hasidic sect, became sort of a modern incarnation of the high priest, a person who could mediate or at least uniquely facilitate people's connection to God. Nevertheless, priests still play several distinctive roles in Judaism. When the Torah is read aloud in synagogue, the first person called to bless the Torah is always a Kohen. At daily service in Israel, the holiday service outside of Israel, all the priests present in the congregation wrap themselves in their prayer shawls and bless the congregation, reciting the words with which God tells Moses to instruct Aaron and his descendants bless the Israelites. Numbers chapter 6, verse 22 through 27. The words are known in the Jewish life as Birkat Kohanim, the priestly benediction. A firstborn son, one who is both male and the first child born to his mother, is supposed to be dedicated to God. Exodus 13, verse 1 through 2, and to perform a religious service for the priest on the 31st day of after the child's birth. However, the father can pay the priest five silver shekels. See Numbers 18, verse 16 today. $5 in silver coins is generally used to have the child released from the obligations. The ceremony of redeeming the firstborn is still practiced among observant Jews. Later, the Torah, God tells the Israelites they are to be a kingdom of priests and holy nations. Exodus 19, verse 6. In the same manner, Aaron and his sons were supposed to lead an especially holy life and help bring Jews closer to God. The Jewish people, in turn, are supposed to lead a holy life and help bring humanity to God. So, and trust me, he goes on and on like this. He really went in deep in this with his essays. He has one essay on the priest as a male institution, the importance of clothing. I might get into that on another time, but yeah. So this one was very. I would say this was probably one of the least boring descriptive chapters in Exodus, Leviticus, and Deuteronomy. Because I'm telling you, these next couple chapters, it's nothing but detail. For the next few chapters, it's just all detail, all measurements. A lot of it is a repeat of what was already said, because it's like, all right, God said it to Moses. Now Moses is saying it to everyone, and now they're going to confirm that they actually did it. Trust me, some of these parts, unfortunately, forgive me, God, but probably one of my least favorites, but they're very important. Sorry, I just really had to wet my whistle. I just did a lot of reading. But yeah, so, and one thing interesting, and I wish I would have, I wish like, since we're running short on time, I wish I probably would have got into the male priesthood. I may do that on another episode. I may do that on a separate, like, extra, something extra. Um, But when he talks about the clothing and the fact that, because I touched on it as well, the clothing was supposed to be beautiful, supposed to be spectacular. Some people like to get into, like, why are these pastors, why do they wear such nice clothes and all this other stuff? Me personally, I try not to get into that. I mean, as long as, because the Bible talks about how the priestly class are supposed to depend on the community. The community is supposed to make their tithes and offerings to the priestly class. But I mean, now I will say that if your pastor has a jet, is riding a Rolls Royce or a Bentley or anything like that, I think that it probably is a misappropriation of funds. But if a pastor or priest or someone, if they're wearing nice clothes and all this other stuff, to me, I don't really think that that's anything nefarious. Now if they're just blowing, like if they're wearing $500, pairs of shoes or something like that, I mean, the Bible talks about how the priestly class are supposed to be the model citizens of their community. They talked about in Genesis book, they mentioned, some of the prohibitions for priests. Priests cannot marry divorced women. Priests cannot marry prostitutes, even though that's okay for everyone else. But the priest is supposed to live like the ideal life. And that's one thing that I like about Judaism that I cannot stand about um Christianity and most Christians, especially Roman Catholicism, because in the Bible, at least right here in Exodus, they want the priest to be married. They want the priest to be a symbolic representative, like he has to be like the most holy image of mankind possible. They want him to be married, but he can't marry a prostitute or a woman who's divorced. They have to look nice. They have to be upstanding, holy citizens. But in some denominations like Roman Catholicism, you have priests that have never been married. You have not, to me, that's just weird, because and some people try to say, and I've heard Catholics say, well, it's supposed to represent, that Christ never married. Well, as we saw here in uh in Revelation, in this cliff note here, it says right here, let me go to 21 verse 9. Then came one of the seven angels holding seven bowls of the seven final plagues, and he spoke with me, saying, come, I will show you the bride, the wife of the Lamb. The Messiah was already married, and his wife is supposed to be Jerusalem. It's supposed to be the congregation, the church, and all this other stuff. So, and God even talks about being in a marriage and divorcing, or putting Israel away for another wife. So to me, it doesn't make sense when I hear all these people talk about, oh, well, priests can't be married, because they just so, they're so extreme to the point where they take Paul's words of it's better to not be married so that way you can live a holy life and all that stuff. No, 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 no. It says it right there. Be married, have a wife, be a model citizen. But just know that your role is to be a priest. Your role in society is to get the people close to me. So, I mean, if the Messiah is already married, then and who are you to place yourself, all this other stuff. Now, yeah, yeah. But the one thing that I like is that when they talked about in this chapter is that Aaron is supposed to represent the people. He's supposed to bear the judgment of the people. He is supposed to be the symbol of the people before God. So if Aaron got to come correct. Aaron has to be anointed, he has to be sanctified, he has to be, he has to be washed, he has to be clean, he has to be clothed right. His clothes have to be of a certain, quality. He can't just walk in there with a bonnet on and holes in his underwear and stuff like that. They even talked about his undergarments. So as men, especially those of us who are married, and those especially fathers, because to me a father, you are a priest, you are a representative of what a man is to your young children, to your sons and your daughters. And more importantly, like if Aaron is supposed to be the priest to represent the people to God, as a man, for those of you that aren't religious and all this other stuff, who are you supposed to represent to your children? If you walking around here with sagging your pants, you're not really looking right, you're not smelling right, who are you representing? When you bring your children to society, like as a man, when you walk out of your house, you represent your family. And to your kids or to your family, you're supposed to represent God. The same way Aaron is supposed to represent the people to God, which is why he bears the weight of their names on his shoulders and on his chest, and he bears the name of the nation on his forehead. He represents the people, but when he steps out of that tabernacle, when he steps out of that holy place, he is supposed to represent the holiness of God, the purification of God. So it's twofold. It is very twofold, you know. And today in society, I don't see that happening. I don't. Very few men do I see who represent their families out in public, but who also represent God to their families. Somebody, and I understand it's hard. I'm not telling you got to be perfect. I'm not telling you that you can't have struggles and problems and stuff like that, because trust me, they talk about it in the Bible. You know, you can have problems, but just know that when you come correct, you are bearing the weight on your shoulders, you're bearing it on your chest, you're bearing it on your forehead. And I could be just, this could be just going into the ether or whatever else. But especially as men, you are to be firstly, you are the priest that represents your family when you leave your home. That's it. Like, you bear the weight of your family on your shoulders. You bear them on your chest. You bear them on your forehead. You represent your parents, you represent your wife, you represent your kids. And unfortunately, we have too many solo warriors out here that don't want to be accountable to anybody. They don't want to represent anybody. But they want people to treat them as someone who's of importance. If you like, to me, you got to hold yourself as important when you go out there. You are important for your family, which is why this whole LGBT, this, not to attack them, but the mindset of, kids, family, this whole me culture that we got here. Oh, I don't want to have kids, or I like, or all this other stuff, like, oh, I'll just adopt kids, or I'll take someone else's kids, or all this. I want to be the cool aunt, the cool uncle. You're not representing anybody. You're not, like, that's I could be going off in the weeds here, but it's just weird because as I'm reading the Bible and I'm seeing that each thing is supposed to represent and stand up for something else. The same way the Messiah bared our sins is the same way Aaron bears the weight of Israel before God. All these things coincide. So as men, who do you bear the weight of? If it's nobody, then you got to ask yourself, who are you accountable to? How can you be accountable to God if you're not being fruitful and multiplying? How can you be accountable to God if you're not responsible for anybody or anything? And that's one of the issues that I have with a lot of these new cultures coming up, these countercultures, Catholicism. Even though I have friends that are Catholic, I grew up baptized Catholic. So my wife, she grew up Catholic, and it's like now that I'm seeing and I'm reading and I'm understanding, I'm asking these questions. It's like, who do you represent? Do you represent yourself? Then what does represent yourself mean? Because Aaron didn't represent himself. It wasn't about Aaron when he was in there, but Aaron's a part of Israel, though. Aaron bears the weight of Israel. Who do you represent? Who are you getting prepared for? Who are you getting sanctified for? Who do you represent when you go out in the world? Like, if you got children, what do you represent when you step into their lives? Because to the Israelites, Aaron represent the Kohen, the priest of God. He was the one taking their sins, taking their guilt offerings, taking their sacrifices to God. But at the same time, he's like, yo, I represent all of this. So when you leave your house, do you represent your family? But when you step into your house, do you represent God? Do you represent holiness? Do you represent, sanctity? You know? So, whew, yes. So we are done. I think I might pin some of the notes that I got for here today because I know there's a lot that I can still go into. Um, but of course, if I'm not Jewish, so I don't have any ties to the Levitical line, and I don't really think that most people really understand what that means. And just for those of us who are Christian, for those of you that are Messianic, for those of you that are Jewish that converted over, as we all know, the Levitical lines are done away with because the high priest and king, which is the Messiah, he pretty much did away with all that stuff by his own death. So I mean, we can talk about this in more, unfortunately we didn't have any call-ins today, but that's fine. Maybe next time. But until then, yes, if you guys want to please, help the show out. Of course, I don't do any ads on I don't do any ads. I don't have any sponsors on the struggle episodes or the struggle content because God's word it's out there. So I'm not going to charge anybody right now. Now, if we get a ministry started, then that'll be something different. But for right now, my goal is just to get the word out there, So, but if you guys would like to donate, please, I will greatly appreciate it. And if you guys do donate for the struggle, please just put, especially on our PayPal, just add the note struggle because the plan is later on down the road as we grow the content, as we grow the community and stuff like that, any funds that we get for the struggle, specifically for the struggle, and I'm thinking about calling it struggle ministries. Any funds that we get towards the struggle ministries, we are going to be using them to get Bibles, to get stuff out there to people. So it's not going to be for me to collect a paycheck. It's going to be to get the word out there to people. So until then, I appreciate everyone who watched. I appreciate for everyone who will watch this or listen to this wherever you get this content. And until then, I will see you guys possibly on Monday for a movie review. And yeah, I'm out. See you. Bye.